Discover exciting places to visit. Explore your community. Learn about new cultures. Meet fascinating people. Find the exotic. There are hidden treasures wherever you go. Travel, learn, take a day trip in your city, or hike in a rainforest. There's so much to see and share. What are you waiting for? Go on a journey. Welcome to On a Journey. I'm Paul Prado. Make sure to check out each video that goes with our podcast on our YouTube channel, Paul Prado Photography on a Journey. Welcome to On a Journey. I'm Paul Prado, and here we are in beautiful, balmy Redlands, California. And today, again, I'm delighted that we're with Tom Atchley, a historian for Redlands, California, and a member of the Redlands Conservancy. He's going to take us around this area called Highland Point. And there's a house behind us which is going to be part of our tour. So, Tom, thanks again for coming out. And what are we going to see today?
We're going to see 6 different homes built in Highland Point from 1888 all the way up to modern 1913.
Modern.
And that's modern. And Mediterranean, Victorian, Georgian villa,
Italian,
and Renaissance homes, and one classic box. And most of these homes have received heritage awards.
Tom said he's also going to talk to us about the vegetation that's been planted along here, the trees and the shrubbery. We talked, and he said he's going to share with us about the different styles of architecture. He just told you about Mediterranean and the different accoutrements that adorn each of these homes. So Tom, we're looking forward to the trip today.
Okay.
And let's just get on our journey.
All right. Let's go.
So here our walk takes us to the original site of the Henry Fisher Mansion. We're on the corner of San Mateo and West Highland and Redlands. We've got a horseshoe-shaped driveway with lush yard, robust bushes, these giant trees here, and palm trees. So what is significant about this home and this area here, Tom?
Okay, Henry Fisher started the Fisher Oil Company in Pennsylvania, and then sold that oil company to John D. Rockefeller, and brought his millions to Redlands. And then once in Redlands, he became a real developer of industries we'd never had before. He built a fine house here in 1897, and it really was a mansion. It had at least 20 bedrooms. It was 2.5 stories, Spanish Revival, with a 3-story square tower. And in 1897 it was plastered on the exterior, which was unusual because it's one of the first exterior stucco houses. Kimberly Crest was built the same year in 1897 as the mansion that was here. And it would be here today, except that the termites in 1941 got tired of holding hands.
Yikes.
And they tore down the house. So the present home that's here was built in 1949.
And what other homes were around here, well, do you know, during that time period?
In 1897, when this was built, the Stillman Berry house was across the street, and it's the shingle style home, 2-story with a tower on the end.
So we have streets in Redlands, Stillman. We have other famous streets here with the names of the people that we're finding out about today.
Yeah. So Fisher, the first thing he starts with his money is the Redlands Electric Light and Power Company, and they built a powerhouse that's still being used by Southern California Edison since 1893 above Green Spot. And then he turned around and started the Southern California Power Company, which built 3 powerhouses up the Santa Ana River. And then he started a company you're all familiar with called Southern California Edison.
I was just going to go there with that.
Okay, and so he basically collected all the smaller electrical companies that were here in Southern California, forming that gigantic company, and then built dams and reservoirs up in the southern Sierras that are still owned by Southern California Edison to this day.
So is he connected to the citrus industry in any
Not
way?
not really
so
connected.
So he is totally apart from.
Yes, yes.
So a lot of times we're doing, I'm doing articles and research on the humongous citrus industry that made the Inland Empire what it is.
Yeah.
And here we have a person to come here and do something completely different.
Yeah.
Off the grid, but literally on the grid.
So with his electricity, the major use of electricity was in packing houses and streetcar lines.
Ah, there you go. There's your citrus connection.
So in 1898, they electrified the Redlands streetcar line and connected it to San Bernardino. And once again, Henry Fisher was the president of the San Bernardino Traction Company, with electric streetcars that ran all over this area. And then in 1907, he started his own little electric streetcar company called the Redlands Central Railroad. And that car barn is right across the street from the high school.
That's right.
On the corner of Church and East Citrus Avenue. It's still there. It's the last
Across
streetcar.
from the AutoZone.
Yeah, AutoZone. Right, and it's the last streetcar barn in Southern California.
So if you can, let me wait for this truck to go by. So if you're going to AM, PM, or AutoZone on Citrus,
Yeah.
you will see a huge red structure. I think it's a mechanics thing right now, but that's where the last
Streetcar barn
for all of Southern California here in Redlands. And you were telling me earlier about the back, the garden here.
Yeah.
Is there an official name?
No, they just called it the Fisher Gardens, but
Is it still called the Fisher Gardens now?
still called the Fisher Gardens now. When Fisher came to Redlands, his first wife had died, and he married again, and his second wife was about 30 years younger, which raised a lot of eyebrows in Redlands.
I'd say so.
Because this is Victorian Redlands. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher liked to entertain. They had one party at the house that had everybody came dressed as Turkish, you might say,
They wore
elite.
fez?
They wore fez, they wore everything.
Had the
Then they had
fez
another
on?
party where all the women came dressed as flowers.
Nice.
And we're talking with headdresses that are 3 feet tall. And
It's a precursor to the headdress ball. I don't know, but that sounds like it.
so for these parties, you're going to have the streetcar lines running late to take everybody home, because that way you don't have to hop in your carriage with your horses and gallop back and forth on the streets of Redlands. The streetcars would take you right back to your house, and of course that was part of the activities that went with it.
So if you're living in Redlands, imagine you hear all this traffic and you've got trucks and cars and all kinds of vehicles. Imagine a time when you're having a garden party where everybody's dressed either in some sort of garb or flowers, and you have horse and buggies and carriages roaming about and carting people back and forth home.
The Redlands Daily Facts described each of the women and what they were wearing, and the front page of the newspaper for 1906, when the party was held, half the front page was just a description of the women's dresses. So Mr. Fisher, like all rich men, collected fine horses and art. And so in 1913, he built a special carriage barn, and off of San Mateo here, the driveway goes into the 1913 carriage barn, but he didn't keep horses and carriages there, he kept his art pieces. And Mrs. Fisher was considered an art critic for the time period, and if she gave her approval to a particular piece, you were said to be in as far as the Fisher family was concerned. So the stone wall dates back to 1897. That's along San Mateo Street. So,
Right here?
Yep.
So I don't know, you could probably pan a little that way. Just a little. You could see
much of
those
the wall.
flowers. And then on the other side, there's a lot of sun on it right now. So this is historic wall.
Yeah.
And built when, do you think?
1897.
1897, that wall is built, and everybody drives by it every day. And here we have awesome history here in the city of Redlands.
So if you want to see the original Henry Fisher mansion, go to the Redlands Historical Society webpage and you'll see it. And as I said, it's a 3-story building, stucco exterior, square tower, and it's Spanish Revival. One of the first stucco buildings ever built in Redlands at that time.
So the Redlands Historical Society webpage.
If you just
check it out.
If you just go to Google and put Redlands history, it'll pop up.
So where are we off to now?
Okay, let's go to John Fisher's house, who is the son of Henry Fisher, across the street.
All right. Here's a great shot in 2017 of the porte cochere of the John Fisher house. We're going to learn more about it right now with Tom Atchley of the Redlands Conservancy, a Redlands historian. So now we're at the John Fisher house, the son of
Henry Fisher,
right across the street. So here we are, a stone's throw away, and we're going to learn more about this historic house in Redlands on San Mateo in Highland.
So John Fisher came with his father to Redlands in the early 1890s. He lived in a Greek Revival home that was built in 1895 on the corner of West Crescent and Center Street, and it's still there with columns and everything. But he began to need more room, and so in 1913 he had Taylor Brothers Brick Company build this Mediterranean-style home, and for $15,000.
And I noticed they have fluted columns.
Yeah, fluted columns.
So we have
on
fluted
the
columns here in the entryway. It just looks really gorgeous.
And if you look underneath the eaves, you'll see little rosettes that go all the way around the outside of the house. And once again, it's plastered. It's, as I said, plastered brick. Now, John Fisher had his own hobbies. In addition to being in the electric companies and everything else, he got interested in motion pictures, and he hired a gentleman by the name of Cecil B. DeMille.
Holy Toledo.
And DeMille and him did all kinds of films. Squaw Man wanted to be one of their first up at Big Bear. And in fact, John Fisher had such an interest in Big Bear, Fisher Point is named after the family, and he built a resort up there called the Lagunitas Lodge, which is still there today. And in 1914, because they'd done so much filming, they actually started the Big Bear Airport, which is also there today.
So the Lagunitas Lodge,
which is there,
is connected to Fisher, the motion picture industry. So Redlands is not only connected to Edison, which you are quite familiar with, it's also connected to the motion picture industry that has made California, in my opinion, unbiased of course, entertainment capital of the world. So here we are in Redlands enjoying a house that's part of the motion picture industry.
So Fisher and Cecil B. DeMille did several productions in the mountains, and then they got serious, and Fisher started Glaskey Studios. First they were located here in Redlands, and then later on they moved to Hollywood. But then Glaskey Studios changed their name, and today they're called Paramount.
So Glaskey Studios, again, now Paramount, which millions of people tour it every day, and mostly now in the summertime and holidays, but here has its origins in Redlands, California. Awesome.
So whereas Henry had his horses and his art as his hobbies, John Fisher's hobby was collecting art when it came to Southwest, the Southwest art, especially American Indians of the Southwest. And in 1913, he built a pueblo on the back side of the house, using basically good old Redlands clay, and then filled it with all kinds of artifacts, everything from cowboys and Indian period to different artifacts that he collected. The other thing he did, he got into automobile collecting pretty big time. In 1909, he bought 2 matched Buicks, and from Redlands he took them to Big Bear. So Bill Moore wrote a book called Fun with Fritz, and Fritz was also the name that John Fisher went by. And they went to Big Bear, and Fun with Fritz, he goes up Cajon Pass in 1909 in a Model T, 2 Buick Model Ts, and then through the Lucerne Valley. They stage hold-ups, and they stage all kinds of other things which they filmed. And then they go up the Cushenberry Grade, which is really, really steep, backside of Big Bear, and then go to Big Bear and then travel around Big Bear, and they pick up all the wood they need for their campfires, and Hollywood people get to run around in the Buicks for a while. And of course they had to carry enough fuel to get up there and back.
That's a lot of weight. Because
there are no gas stations in Big Bear in 1909.
No filling stations.
Nothing. Okay. so John Fisher was a real character, and he became, once again, deeply involved in Southern California Edison Company after his father retired. He continued his relationship with Southern California Edison. And of course, in 1909, the Fisher Company it was San Bernardino Traction Company sold out to Pacific Electric. And so all Southern California electric streetcar lines were all united after they were all started and built by John Fisher and his dad Henry Fisher. The home was then purchased by the Crum family. Captain Crum served on the Redlands. Crum.
C-R-U-M?
K-R-U-M-M.
K-R-U-M-M.
Served on the Redlands City Council from 1928 till 1942, and he was a Spitfire. He had sailed the oceans of the world for 40 years. And when he came to Redlands, he got involved in the citrus industry, of course.
Of course.
He bought 200 acres of citrus and had a packing house on 6th Street. But he also got into a fertilizer factory. And his fertilizer factory was on the corner of, Wabash and East Colton.
So if you go to Wabash, East Colton, by the Arco, by the high school, here, in your local here in Redlands, California, and you're driving around these city streets, there's so much rich history that was created here, that is the beginning, the impetus of so many industries that we enjoy every day.
So the buildings are still there on the corner of East Colton and Wabash. And what he did is he bought some New Mexico caves and brought bat guano to Redlands, manufactured it, and then sold the fertilizer, which is very high in nitrate.
So this is an aside. Bat guano it's the miracle grow of anything that you want to grow. Just a small amount applied, and you're going to get lush crops and flowers and whatever else you're growing.
It makes the oranges oranger, and it makes the trees grow faster and hopefully produce larger oranges. So, all right, next
So where are we
house.
off to now?
Now we're to the next house up here, which is an Italian villa.
So we're going to be heading off to an Italian villa.
So from the Mediterranean.
The Fisher house here also has a rose arbor. You can see the flanged white flange-like structures on the top. It used to have a large pool and a fountain, but has since been filled in, and now we just have lush grass and landscape growing around it. Beautiful to see. So here we are at the Gregory Palmer house on Highland.
Yeah, 1205 West Highland, and we're at what we call Highland Point, where Highland and Cedar Street comes together, forms a point. And in 1888, Leon Benson, who built the corner house we're going to see at Highland Point, was very much into experimenting in nursery stock, and he planted olive trees. And so for a long time, Redlands had a healthy olive industry.
Wow.
Cubius Cannery was located at Alta Street and West Lagonia in Redlands, and was operating as a cannery until the 1940s.
So here we have Olive Street, all kinds of Fisher Street, all kinds of names of streets in Redlands here.
Yeah.
And we've got olive trees adorning this awesome shady street.
Glad it's shady.
I know, huh?
So the Italians believed in very fancy entrances. So this Italianate Renaissance home actually sits on the lot, so you're only looking at the side of the home. It has what we call an Adams entrance, which is offset from the street itself. It cost $6,000 in 1911.
Imagine what it costs today.
Yeah. Thomas Wadsworth was the architect. Davis Donald family built the home, and they also had F.G. McLean, who was brought in to do some of the landscaping. In 1924, the house was re-landscaped again by W.E. Rebeth. Rebeth was a landscape architect who lived in Redlands, and the home was featured in the 1924 House Builder and Garden magazine, which was the Life magazine of that time period. So you have hanging lamps, lions on the balcony, corner posts, low-pitched hipped roof.
So if you could come a little closer here, I want us to get a good look at this lion. I don't know if you can go right there and get that lion.
And the
both of these are
sunken
really good.
gardens that were all done by landscape architects are all still there.
So here you have an Italian-styled home with sunken gardens. The, what did you call that? Adams
entrance.
The Adams entrance. We have sort of ornate columns here with wrought iron.
Fluted Corinthian columns.
Fluted Corinthian columns underneath
crochet, which is has a canvas cap to it.
It's just a beautiful home. One more beautiful home in the city of Redlands. We've got our citrus products here. We've got roses.
And
it's just a beautiful house.
He's the vice president of American Fruit Company, and Highland Avenue has the reputation of being the butler belt.
The butler belt.
The butler belt. If you're rich enough to have a butler to open up the door for you.
Okay.
That's why it's called. So the Henry Fisher house, the John Fisher house, this home, and one across the street all had butlers and maids, the maid service, and probably a cook.
So here we are on Butler.
Well, it's the butler belt.
The butler belt. So a little piece of Redlands history that I never knew. I'm learning more and more every time we do these great talks with Tom Atchley.
So the neighborhood changed when these houses were built, because what had been Olive Orchard all the way to Cedar Street was taken out, so this house could be built here in 1911. Okay, let's march on.
Here's an olive tree. They kind of look reminiscent of Wizard of Oz. You can imagine the arms coming out at Dorothy and the Scarecrow. But this is actually the olive trees that Tom Atchley was talking about that once serviced a thriving olive industry here in the city of Redlands, California. And we have a street here in the city called Olive Street. So this whole Butler belt, say that 10 times fast, you have olive trees, and Tom's telling me more about the trees that are in this direction. Let's find out what they are. Tom just shared with us about the olive trees and the olive industry. This is a Deodar fir from the Himalayas. So Highland has got an assortment, a variety of trees, and Rebeth was into landscaping. So if you come and walk down here, today, here we are in mid-June, it's really cool and breezy, but really warm out there. Here you have a fir tree from the Himalayas. We've got a couple more over here. And Tom's going to share with us about these two trees that are planted.
Okay, so the 4 deodar firs that are in front of West Highland here are all planted by Rebeth. And once again, he is trying to bring accents in terms of street tree themes to Highland, to West Highland. And of course, When this is being done, it's before we get into actually street tree committee, which starts in Redlands in 1906 and says any new development, every street in that new residential development is going to have a street tree theme.
So here we have a thematic municipal committee to make sure that Redlands stands out as a beautiful city. So when you drive down these streets, there's a thematic sort of play about them.
Yeah, the aesthetics was really important to Judson and Brown. That carried over to Jenny Davis, and that carried over to the Street Tree Committee. And hopefully we still have it alive and well in Redlands today in terms of the aesthetics on our streets.
And then Gerard's?
And Gerard's Market has 2 deodar firs out front on the corner of Cypress and Center that are called the Judson and Brown trees. In fact, there's a plaque in front of Gerard's commemorating those trees that were planted in 1883 by Elon Waite, who built the Queen Anne Victorian across the street from Gerard's. And he was hired by Judson and Brown just to plant street trees. The street trees were started in Edward Judson's nursery, and then he gave trees away to anybody who would plant them. And of course, on the original deeds of the property in the residence tract, your deed codicil said you were responsible for the caring of the street trees on your block. So if you're buying into a particular area, you're to make sure that those trees stay irrigated and taken care of.
So here we have a community that's responsible, not just the homeowner. You've got the community that's responsible for maintaining the trees and maintaining the welfare of the aesthetics of the block, whatever themed tree outline you had for the city.
Okay, let's go on to the Leon Benson house.
Stay tuned for part 2 of our walk down Highland Point and the Butler Belt in Redlands, California with Redlands historian Tom Atchley.